James catches, puts up a three. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining.
This is the Away Team Live with Dimitri and Cole.
Hello.
Hi there, I'm Dimitri.
I'm Cole. We are a new basketball podcast, and we're going to be doing season recaps for the 22 teams invited to Orlando.
That's right, and no other ones, sorry.
This week, we're going to be doing Washington and Phoenix. We'll be breaking those teams down in terms of what was their offseason like, what were their expectations going into the season, and then how did the regular season pan out.
That's right, and then as well, we will dip our toes into talking about what their kind of postseason, the realistic chances are, and any off-season possibilities on how the teams might change in order to adapt to the following seasons. And just to note, the reason we're doing the Wizards and Suns is we're doing worst to best records. So, starting from the very bottom.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
That's right, we're starting from the very, very bottom. So, this is going to be an interesting episode talking about two teams that many people, maybe have properly written off as non-entities in this Orlando bubble, but we'll see if there's anything interesting to come out of it.
All right. So let's start with the Wizards off-season 2019.
Yes.
So we're going back to April 2nd, 2019. Ernie Grunfeld is fired as the GM of the Washington Wizards. Now, Dimitri, do you know anything about Ernie Grunfeld?
I've heard rumors. I've heard bad things. I've heard mixed things, I should say. I won't say bad things.
Yeah, we'll go with mixed reviews for Ernie Grunfeld's performance. Let's go into a little history of Ernie Grunfeld just to give a before and after look at his firing. He's the Knicks GM from 89 to 99. 397 wins with them, 227 losses.
Pretty good decade.
Yeah.
Pretty good decade for the Knicks, Probably the most memorable one in recent history for Knicks fans who were around for it.
Yeah, I think the only really bad trade that he's known for during that time is the Latrell Sprewell trade, which at the time people were saying, oh, you're getting rid of these Knicks legends, but the Knicks make the finals as the 8th seed in 99 with Latrell Sprewell, so you can't be too upset about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing run.
Anyways, so he goes from Knicks GM, successful, to the Bucks GM from 99 to 2003. And he's known for this trade, which he does right before he leaves the Bucks. February 3rd, trades Ray Allen, who's 27, coming off of a 3-year stretch averaging 22 points per game on 46.5% from the field and 43% from three. And Flip Murray, Kevin Ollie, and...
You guys all know who Flip Murray and Kevin Ollie is. They need no explanation.
Yeah, legends.
Yeah.
Legends. And a first-round pick in 2003 to Seattle for 23 games of 34-year-old Gary Payton and Desmond Mason, another legend.
Yeah, someone else who needs no introduction. Yeah, 34-year-old Gary Payton, he does sound like a guy that would hold some of his grit. I mean, as an expert analyst, what would you say about this trade looking back almost 20 years?
I'd say if you have to attach a first-round pick to get off of one of the best young players in the league, something crazy's going on.
Yeah, there might be some, some mafia money involved in that. I think we should investigate the reality of this 2003 Ray Allen trade. It just seems a little too strange to be true.
So this trade happens, and a couple months later, the Washington Wizards are like, we need this guy to run our office.
This guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And it starts out pretty good. He signs Gilbert Arenas as a restricted free agent from the Golden State Warriors for 6 years, $60 million.
Not bad.
Gilbert Arenas becomes a multiple-time All-Star. Golden State can't match because they're over the cap. That's actually a pretty amazing start to his GM career.
Kids these days don't even know about 6-year contracts.
No.
Yeah, crazy.
It's before their time.
Yeah, crazy things.
it all goes downhill from there. 2004 NBA draft trades the number 5 pick for Anton Jameson and cash. Oh, number 5 pick and Jerry Stackhouse, sorry.
Yes.
2007 and 2008 drafts 2 of the Shaqtin' a Fool All-Stars, Nick Young and JaVale McGee, 16th and 18th.
Pretty good.
That's actually not too bad for the draft position.
Yeah. Yeah, Shaqtin' a Fool All-Stars is, those guys are going to be remembered for a long time.
2009 trades the team's first-round pick with Ricky Rubio and Steph Curry still on the board at number 5 for Mike Miller and Randy Foye.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Listen, it doesn't sound like the best move ever, but I'm sure there was a good, reasoning behind it.
Dimitri,
Put it that way.
shooting's overrated.
Yeah. Who needs a shoot? Yeah, a shooting team has never won the NBA Finals.
2010 drafts John Wall, number 1.
Okay.
Not much to say there. I mean, he's the consensus number 1 overall.
Yeah. Pretty solid choice.
2011 comes into the draft with 2 first-round picks. Nabs Jan Vesely at number 6 and Chris Singleton at number 18.
Yes. Great. I know all about those guys. I'm going to go deeper into their stats in another episode, but just know that these are some really, really great choices.
We actually have a whole episode planned looking at the careers of all of the Wizards throw-in trade players.
Yes. That's right. Yes.
2012 trades JaVale McGee and Nick Young.
Oh, damn. I was hoping they would stay on the teams. That's too bad.
Yeah, right? You wanted this
All right.
story to end with redemption for those 2 players.
But what did they get in return? That's the real question.
Oh, what did they get in return? A second-round pick.
Okay, that's pretty
And Brian Cook.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, all right. Well, that works for me.
2012 NBA draft gets Bradley Beal at number 3 and Tomas Satoransky at number 32. Pretty amazing draft for them.
Pretty solid, yeah. Although Satoransky hasn't really lived up to expectations. He's lived up to number 32 expectations, I would say that.
Same draft, they trade Rashard Lewis and a 2012 second-round pick for Trevor Ariza and Emeka Okafor. Pretty nice. Ariza's career basically takes off with the Wizards. 2013 season traded Emeka Okafor and a 2014 first-round draft pick for Marcin Gortat and a bunch of players.
We're not going to name these players? Are we really going to disrespect them?
I'm sorry. I can't ruin our next podcast.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So he got Trevor Ariza in a good trade.
Yes.
Then he trades Trevor Ariza in a sign and trade and gets nothing in return.
Well, how do you trade someone and you get nothing in return?
He got cash.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of money.
A little money.
A little money, grease the wheels.
It's 2014, though, so I think this is before teams realized that they should be able to get value for sign-in trades.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, more than cash.
Yeah, back then, sign-in trades were looked at as a way of scratching another team's back.
Interesting.
2015 draft trades 2 second-round picks to move up 4 slots to get Kelly Oubre. It's not bad.
I mean, not bad now. I mean, on the Wizards, he wasn't really doing much.
The problem is you start to see a trend of they're getting some pretty good young players in the draft,
Yeah.
but they begin to trade them away. You saw that with the Nick Young and JaVale McGee trade.
Right.
They are going to start trading away future first-round picks
Yeah.
because their team starts to get kind of good.
Right.
And it leaves them in a mess where they don't have good young players going forward except for guys who were drafted 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
So here's where that starts. 2016 trades DeJuan Blair, Chris Humphries, and a 2016 first-round pick to the Suns for Markieff Morris. 2017 traded Andrew Nicholson, who I actually met the other day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, was he nice?
Yeah, he was pretty nice. We exchanged a social distancing head nod towards each other.
That's great.
2017 trades Andrew Nicholson, Marcus Thornton, and a 2017 first-round pick to the Nets for Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan Bogdanovic leaves after the season, playing 26 games for the Wizards.
Wow.
2018, signs Dwight Howard.
Perfect.
That always changes your franchise's trajectory.
Oh, for sure. Dwight Howard is just, it's a ball of chaos. You just throw it into your organization, see what happens.
2018 trades Kelly Oubre and Austin Rivers to get Trevor Ariza back.
Nice. How did Trevor Ariza do once he came back?
He was terrible.
Yeah.
And then February, right before he leaves, trades Otto Porter to the Bulls for Jabari Parker, Bobby Portis, and a 2023 second-round draft pick.
Yeah, so he basically took a big fat shit on the Wizards organization right before checking out.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, considering Otto Porter was probably one of the better younger players they had.
So you look back at this guy's draft and trade resume, and you think, okay, there are some big highlights, right? You have the Gilbert Arenas trade, or signing, rather.
Yeah.
You have drafting John Wall.
Yeah.
Which, can you really give him that much credit for winning the lottery?
Yeah, that's true, but, there have been teams in, let's say, recent years that have had the first pick and done interesting things with it. Yeah, for sure. There have been teams that had the second pick and the third pick that didn't draft a guy named Luka Doncic. Yeah, well, I was gonna keep it, under wraps, but yeah, if we're gonna go out, I mean, there were multiple teams that passed on Luka Doncic, who was clearly the best pick.
I've got a serious question for you.
What's that?
If the Kings had the number one pick in last year's draft, do you think they would have selected RJ Barrett?
Yeah, they probably would have. Honestly, they probably would have selected fucking, who was the top ranked, European prospect from last year's draft? The guy that the San Antonio Spurs drafted at, number 20.
Oh, man.
He's still playing with the G League. I think they would have drafted him at number 1.
What was the name of the guy for the Pacers?
Goga.
Goga Bitadze.
Yeah.
He's definitely getting drafted by the Kings.
Yeah, the Kings would be like, Goga Bitadze has a lot of upside, especially 1 year after drafting Marvin Bagley or whatever.
So, my take on Ernie Grunfeld is he was awesome at constructing teams that would win 39 to 45 games.
One of the best ever at constructing teams that would barely sneak into the playoffs every year.
GM'd for the Wizards for 18 years, made the playoffs 8 times, which isn't great, but isn't too bad.
Could be worse.
The problem with him is he's completely to blame for the Wizards' current situation, where they have a total lack of young role players and future draft picks. Or rather, the Wizards' situation at the beginning of the 2019 offseason.
Yeah, I mean, they were totally screwed. I mean, the John Wall Supermax Achilles thing doesn't help at all.
Yeah. So, fast forward to April 2nd, 2019. Tommy Shepard takes over as the interim GM of the Washington Wizards. That is not a lot of time between April 2nd and the NBA draft and free agency.
Yeah.
You're basically just thrown to the fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing they didn't end up in the playoffs,
That's mean.
What seed were they last year, I wonder? 11th. Yeah, they weren't very close, were they?
So Shepard comes in and immediately focuses on youth, right?
Yeah.
Drafts Rui Hachimura number 9.
A lot of people hated on that when it happened, but, I didn't think it was too bad.
So ESPN had him going number 12. NBADraft.net had him going number 11. The Ringer had him going number 12. The Ringer's Kevin O'Connor, who I personally really like, had him going number 17. So you look at these draft predictions, and it's a little bit of a stretch, but he was supposed to fall in that general range.
Yeah. No, it wasn't like they chose a second rounder, at number 9. I mean, they could have potentially traded down, but at the end of the day, Rui Hachimura positionally is not a bad pick for them. If they can work some of the rustiness off of him and some of the lack of polish and some of the issues that we'll talk about that kept his rookie season from being better, then he could be a really good player for them in the future. The problem is he's not at that point yet, and they're ostensibly trying to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, and in that 8 to 15 range, there were a handful of big 3-and-D / maybe small ball 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like out of those guys, it's an eye of the beholder sort of thing, where some teams are going to like Hachimura, some teams are going to like Cam Reddish,
Right.
some teams might like Sekou Doumbouya. It's just what you like.
Yeah, and at least we've seen a good bit of Hachimura this season compared to some of the other picks around that number range that have just been, like Romeo Langford. Who's seen Romeo Langford? He was a lottery pick.
But he's got an awesome name.
He does have an awesome name. And
hair.
Yes, and he has played a few minutes, but it took a very long time for him to get into playing shape. Of course, the Wizards do need Hachimura out on the court more than the Celtics need Langford out on the court. But even that considered, pick value, not that bad.
Yeah. He then, on draft night, trades for Admiral Schofield.
Best name of the draft.
Yeah.
By far.
And you can never complain about getting an extra second-round pick.
No. Especially if he's an Admiral.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the highest rank in the Navy. Second highest? I don't know. It's one of the highest ranks in the Navy, though. So maybe this is like the next coming of, the Admiral, except he plays a completely different game and just isn't very good.
I wonder if the Admiral Jr. is his Basketball Reference nickname.
We'll find out right now. It is not. He does not have any nicknames.
No nickname?
No nicknames as of yet.
That's harsh, man.
But it does say his Twitter account is Admiral Elite 15. And he's British. Interesting.
Admiral Elite 1 is David Robinson.
Yeah. That username has already been taken.
Another trade on draft night. It's just such a perfect juxtaposition of the difference between Ernie Grunfeld and Tommy Shepard.
Mm-hmm.
Trades Dwight Howard.
No. Why would you trade Dwight Howard? I mean, he was just such a good guy. I mean, look at him on the Lakers. He must have been doing the exact same stuff on the Wizards, right? Yeah. No, it's a pretty good call there, I would say.
Yeah. The guy who's locker room cancer in every locker room except for the Lakers for some reason.
Who knows why?
Except for the Lakers' second stint.
Yes. Who knows? Maybe the weather's changed.
So then, I don't think this is draft night. I believe it's the day after. They take on salary from the Lakers in order to open salary for the Anthony Davis trade. They take on Moritz Wagner, who was the Lakers' first-round pick 2018, Jamario Jones, and Isak Bonga, and a 2022 second-round pick.
Not bad. Not a bad haul.
Not bad. Re-signs 22-year-old center Thomas Bryant for 3 years, $25 million.
Pretty good.
Signs and trades because he realizes that the sign and trade can actually bring in valuable assets.
Completely mind-blowing. Everyone else in the Wizards organization just was like, what? You can do this?
So he signs and trades Tomas Satoransky to the Bulls for a 2020 second-round pick and a 2022 second-round pick. I like getting value back for Satoransky, but at the same time, I'm a pretty big fan of him. And I thought at 3 years, $30 million, I guess that's right at the point where I'm saying, oh, that's a little bit too much money for him.
The thing is, they have a lot of these cheap kind of journeyman point guards already that are doing pretty comparable work to him for a fraction of the money. I think it's a good move. I don't think they really needed him, considering that, they had Isaiah Thomas in the beginning of the season, who had the worst defensive win shares this year. But they do have Shabazz Napier now. They have Ish Smith. They have a few guys that Gary Payton II. You know, they have some good guys.
Yeah, the Isaiah Thomas defensive stat, he is the only player in the league this season with a negative defensive win share.
Pretty insane.
Yeah.
It's very hard to accumulate those, by the way.
Yeah.
In case you were wondering.
There's a lot of players with 0.
Yeah.
I think it's just the way the stat works. It's very hard to get below 0.
Yeah. I mean, if you're 5'9" and your hip is broken and all you can do is shoot and you're on the worst defensive team in the league, one of the worst defensive teams in the league, I mean, you're fucked, basically.
So, Shepard also signed a bunch of cheap veteran contracts.
Yeah.
And when you're not going to have John Wall for the entire year and you're just looking for someone cheap to be a placeholder for the year,
Yeah.
taking a flyer on Isaiah Thomas isn't such a bad thing.
No, it wasn't a bad call at all. Anything else from the preseason?
They traded for Davis Bertans, who's on a $7 million contract. Really one of the sneaky best offseason moves, I thought.
I mean, very lucky that they were able to do it.
You want to tell the viewers about what was happening with that?
Essentially, the only reason that Davis Bertans was not going to be re-signed by the Spurs was because they thought they were getting Marcus Morris, who had verbally agreed to sign a contract with them. At the last minute, he pulls out and signs with the Knicks instead, and the Wizards by that point had already gotten their hands on Davis Bertans, so really an insane signing, and also good for them because the Spurs clearly were not using him properly considering the kind of year that he's had with the Wizards.
And then the last cheap contract they got was Ish Smith, who you mentioned. 2 years, $12 million.
Not bad.
Great signing.
Yeah, not bad.
And then he extends Bradley Beal. 2 years, $72 million. He'll be on the team through at least 2022 with a player option for 2023.
And that's great. You know what? The longer they can hold on to him, the higher their chances are of doing anything of note.
Yeah.
If they don't have him, the whole ship's going to fall apart.
I was pretty stunned when it happened.
Yeah.
I just expected him to be the next free agent who we monitor for the entire season.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed by it happening as a non-Washington fan, but then again, you know, if he likes it there, then and they were able to keep him happy enough to stay there, then that's considered, you know, good management in my eyes.
Yeah.
All right. So is that anything else of note in the preseason?
Yeah, just going into the season, just to talk about expectations for a minute. Their expectations going into the season were that this was going to be a rebuilding year.
Yep. Without
Right.
John Wall, you know, what more can you hope for?
Yeah. Try to get a pretty good draft pick, develop the young players. And I just wanted to mention this very quickly. During Grunfeld's administration, there was a lot of locker room drama. There was the famous gun situation with Gilbert Arenas and Javaris Crittenton,
Yes.
where they supposedly pointed guns at each other.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
And then Gilbert Arenas came back from his suspension doing the pistol dance while he walked out onto the court.
What a cool guy, man. What a cool guy. They don't make him like that anymore.
Apparently, at one point, John Wall told Scotty Brooks, "Fuck you," when he tried to criticize him.
Interesting. Okay.
Apparently, Kelly Oubre told Scotty Brooks, "Fuck you," when he tried to criticize him.
Okay. Seems like a common denominator there.
There were fights all the time. A Wall and Jeff Green fight. A lot of Bradley Beal and John Wall going to the media,
Yeah.
complaining about things.
Yeah.
As an expectation for the season, I think they're hoping that that stuff ends.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. I mean, at the very least. I think most people had consigned them to bottom half of the Eastern Conference long ago. So it's really about making small internal improvements while waiting for the John Wall contract to kind of see if it can still bear fruit.
Sure, yep.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Season starts.
So season starts, and what happens? I mean, pretty much what everyone expects, except for the surprising thing that they ended up in the 9th seed somehow by the end of the season by winning one more game than Charlotte. That is right. They are they've also lost 2 fewer games than Charlotte. So technically, I think that means that they're 2 games ahead of Charlotte, right? Or 1.5, something like that.
I haven't looked at it from that angle.
It's a pretty ridiculous kind of situation in the East where the 9th seed is this bad. I mean, I kind of want to talk about it in terms of like what kind of narratives did the Wizards have over the course of this year, considering that they still are, without one of their cornerstone franchise players. They did do a huge management shakeup, but they did not do a coaching shakeup. So they're still kind of, using similar system. I mean, the biggest thing is obviously Bradley Beal, the centerpiece, and the biggest all-star snub of the year by far. I mean, the guy was scoring over 30 points a game, getting over 4 rebounds, over 6 assists, steal a game on 45.5%, 35 from 3 on 84 from the line. So, pretty damn good averages, right? And compared to last year, this is 5 more points, less rebounds, but more assists on pretty similar percentages, and his usage has increased by 6%. So while maintaining pretty much the exact same true shooting. So for Bradley Beal, I mean, this is by far his best season. And you can see in the few, weeks before the season ended, what trajectory he was going in. I mean, he balled the fuck out, and I think one of the most iconic moments from the, right before the end of the season was the back-to-back games against the Bulls and the Bucks, where Beal scored his career best 53 against the Bulls, and then scored 55 the next night against the Bucks. And then a few nights later, he dropped 42 against the Jazz. And then, a few weeks before that, he had dropped 40 against the Hawks. This is all in maybe late January, February, just the course of 1 month. And then he dropped 47 against the Bucks previously. But do you know what is the one thing that connects all these games together? The Wizards lost every single one of these games. This man carried the entire team on his back, and they just couldn't pull across the finish line. So in his 55-point game against the Bucks, which I watched the other day, basically the final score, it was a 3-point game. I mean, it went to overtime. Either team could have won it. But one thing that you see is that the defensive rotations of the Wizards are just horrifying. I mean, this is reflected in all the numbers.
And that starts with Beal.
Yeah.
He's one of the worst defenders in the league.
Yeah, I mean, that is for sure. You can't even talk about Bradley Beal without bringing up the fact that he has, what is it, one of the worst defensive win shares as well? I mean, he's, terrible defender. But it's a matter, I mean, you see it, it's a systemic issue. It's not even just a man issue. It's a systemic issue. The way that the Bucks are able to carve through the Wizards' defense was just, I mean, ridiculous. And the only thing that kept them in the game was Bradley Beal was shooting contested 3-pointers, over Chris Middleton over and over again in the fourth quarter.
Second worst defensive box plus minus in the league. Worse than Trae Young. Wow. That's Bradley Beal.
Yeah. Which is insane because he's not the size of Trae Young.
And they've got 3 players in the bottom 15 in terms of defensive box plus minus.
Yeah.
They were abysmal defensively.
Yeah. No, I mean, Bradley Beal in the 55-point game had a defensive rating of 121.
Wow.
That means he was letting 21 points basically per 100 possessions be added against his team.
Wow.
While Ish Smith was leading the team with 113 defensive rating. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. But despite that, I will say that the Wizards were on a positive overall course from the beginning of the season to the end. And Bradley Beal as well. So if you look at Beal's stats until the end of 2019, he was scoring about 28 points, 5 rebounds, 6.7 assists on pretty bad efficiency, honestly, like 43.6% from the field, less than 32% from 3. For the rest of the season, from January 1st onward, he scored 33.6 points a game.
Wow.
Yeah. Less rebounding, 5.4 assists, but I think what happened was he took on a lot more of the offensive burden personally, and his his shooting percentages were 47.4% from the field, 39% from three. So just absolutely amped it up, just became, and not enough people were talking about this, Dame had a few game stretch where he was having those 60-point games. People didn't talk about Beal nearly as much, considering the fact that his team, no one really expected them to do anything.
That's interesting how much better he was in the later part of the season. Yeah. I wonder how much of that is you have a team full of young players, and young players always turn it on in the second half of the season. Maybe they're setting him up better.
Yeah.
He's getting into stroke too. I don't know.
They won 9 of their 21 games in the calendar year 2019. So 0.3, 30% of their games. And then once 2020 hit, they won 11 of their 16 with Beal. So over 40% win rate, which we're not talking superstar numbers here, but that's a pretty huge increase in consideration. So despite the fact they're going to be extremely rusty, they were on a positive trajectory before the season ended. And there is hope that they're able to, increase that, although we're going to get into this. There's some pretty huge setbacks that they have to deal with.
What did you think about not trading Davis Bertans at the trade deadline? I was looking back, and back in February and January, leading up to the trade deadline, there was a lot of noise of the Wizards have to do this in order to get back either young talent or first-round picks.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I thought it was kind of an overrated assumption. Considering that Davis Bertans is not even particularly that old of a player. He's 27 years old, which, if I'm not mistaken, is about around the same as Bradley Beal, around the same as John Wall. Like, if you look at it on a timeline situation, there is hope that if he decides to resign, that he would be able to be part of a, not championship caliber team, but at least a playoff caliber team, right? So I didn't think that not trading him was the worst decision in the world. That remains to be seen. I don't remember what the rumors were like on what teams were looking for.
The big one that I kept seeing was Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
And that they were offering 2 first-round picks.
That would have definitely been a good take.
That's a lot of value for Davis Bertans.
Especially, and might as well blow the lid off this. As of the recording today, he announced that he will not be participating in the Orlando season. So basically, they got a few weeks of Davis Bertans, and they don't even have a guarantee to sign him.
Yeah.
To re-sign him. They do have his bird rights, though.
He's saying the right things about wanting to re-sign with Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens if a team offers him $20 million.
Yeah.
At this point, we just have no information about how the cap's going to look.
Yeah.
Our team's going to be big spenders in the current crisis economy.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
And the other issue is that I think, to an extent, although he's had an insane three-point shooting season, I think there will be a tendency for teams to overrate him in terms of his abilities, because besides the three-point shooting, he's not that competent of a defender, although, being on a team like the Wizards doesn't really help, but he's basically worse Danilo Gallinari caliber of player.
That's an awesome comparison.
Yeah. And then one last thing about the Wizards is that, we have to look at Rui, their big draft pick. He's looked okay on the court. His counting stats are fine. He's shooting pretty high 40s, pretty high 20s from three. And, his free throw percentage is fine. He's scoring 13 points a game, 6 rebounds, pretty decent counting stats. But the reality is, and a lot of the advanced stats show that he's just a complete net negative on the team. And I was wondering why. And so I started looking into his play type data. And I just found that in terms of being the roll man in the pick and roll, which is a place that you'd expect him to really flourish, he is in the 27th percentile, which is terrible. This is killing him, right? He's basically one of the places where they need him to be functional. He just hasn't picked it up yet. He's not efficient enough to do it. His posting up, although he doesn't do it that much, is terrible. 24th percentile, not good. His cutting, 34th percentile, not good. His best categories, I guess, are putbacks, obviously, and then transition scoring, where he's pretty decent.
I was looking at his shooting stats today, and what struck me is for a guy that's so inefficient in certain play types, he's very efficient in terms of shooting stats at the rim. He shoots 71% at the rim.
Oh, and then this is what I found was actually fascinating. He shoots 33.7% from 3 to 10 feet from the rim.
Nuts.
How is that possible? How is it possible that you shoot twice as well from 0 to 3 feet than from 3 to 10 feet? Because the distances, I mean, you'd imagine a lot of the shots from 3 to 10 feet are going to be closer to the 3-foot mark than the 10-foot mark.
I guess he just doesn't have a floater.
Yeah.
Because that's what those 3 to 10 feet shots usually are.
Yeah.
71%, though, is like LeBron level.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can work on a floater, or at least, I mean, improve 33.7% from 3 to 10 feet is just absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe as a statistic when you look at it.
So I had a little section. I'm going to try to do it for every team. It's just a quick most and best section. I had Rui as my most interesting player for all of the reasons that you've mostly mapped out so far.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive numbers, though, for him are just really, really bad.
Yeah, surprisingly.
He was 10th worst in defensive box plus minus, one of those 15 players with Beal and Bertans on the Wizards in the top 15.
Yeah.
Bottom 15, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Top 15 worst.
Top 15 worst.
So he's playing 73% of his minutes at power forward. What's that going to look like when he has to, if they make the 8th seed, if he has to guard Giannis or Pascal Siakam?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, they're not going to make the 8th seed.
This is highly hypothetical stuff we're talking about. This is like particle physics that we're talking about right now. This is quantum physics. He both will and will not be able to guard Pascal Siakam.
It'll still, at the very least, be interesting from a League Pass watchability perspective.
Yeah.
To see what happens in those matchups.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think that truth is, the Wizards, for all the right that they've done this season, I mean, their trade deadline moves were actually pretty smooth. Like Jordan McRae for Shabazz Napier, pretty solid switch. Jerome Robinson for Isaiah Thomas, pretty great.
Yep.
And then, grabbing a little bit of young talent from the draft, pretty good. And this is actually good for them. One of their best lineups doesn't even have Bertans in it. Isn't that great? It's Rui Hachimura, Jerome Robinson, Bryant, Napier, and Beal is plus 52 points for 100 possessions.
I have a best lineup section that I chose that lineup for.
Yeah. I think that, and it's funny because it uses their newly acquired assets. So it actually shows that, they've actually put some thought into building the team properly. So, they are going to be an easy win for most of the teams that end up in Orlando, to be honest. But they're a team. What else can you say?
Yeah. Quick thought about that lineup. In 37 minutes, you wonder if that's enough time to be confident enough in a lineup to start it in crunch time.
Yeah.
And then just to round out the rest of the biggest weakness, I'd say, for them is defense. We've talked about it. They were 30th in defensive rating with a 115 defensive rating, 29th in defensive rebounding and defensive rebounding percent. They gave up 51 points in the paint, which is enormous.
Yeah.
Thomas Bryant, when he's on the court, players shoot 66% at the rim.
That's not very good.
It's not great.
Not great.
Not great.
No. Yeah, and then just one last thing to talk about the Wizards. So in terms of players that they have on their roster next year, if no trades are made, they will have John Wall, Bradley Beal, Thomas Bryant, Ish Smith, Rui Hachimura, Jerome Robinson, Troy Brown, Moritz Wagner, Admiral Schofield, Anze Pasechniks, and Isaac Bonga, although his salary is not yet guaranteed. So you know what? In terms of a core, it's not really much of one, but it is something to build from, and there are some nice young players on there. Garrison Matthews, who's one of their two-way players, had an absolutely ridiculous game against the Heat before the season ended. So there's some hope there. They have a few, unrestricted free agents that might have some kind of desire to return. Who knows? Yeah, so basically, free win for most teams. And were there any highlights their season?
So I've got a best stretch, 5-2 stretch, where they won against Charlotte, Brooklyn with Kyrie, so the worst version of Brooklyn.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Dallas without Luka, Chicago, and New York Knicks.
Yeah.
On my notes, all I have next to that is ...
It's pretty bad. Yeah. I mean, I tried looking at their rolling net rating to see if there was ever a position at which they maintained a positive net rating over the course of the season. And I'm pretty sure there were maybe 2 occasions in which they were able to do so. And it just very on and off.
The best win I found for them was Denver on January 4th. They won by 14 points without Beal.
Oh, that's good.
The bench played amazing. Troy Brown had 25 points, went 10 of 12 from the field. Ish Smith went 15 of 24 from the field, had 32 points. Isak Bonga, 15. So yeah, that's probably their best win. Denver was playing pretty well during that stretch.
Yeah.
And then just most valuable player on the team, pretty easy. Bradley Beal.
Yeah, not much question there.
Sweet. So I think that's it for the Wizards.
Yeah, I would just like to say that if they want any hope of doing anything, they should hire a wizard to be their defensive coordinator. And that might fix some of their issues. Bitch.
Would you recommend Gandalf or Dumbledore?
Oh, gee, Gandalf for sure. Gandalf knows how to fight. Dumbledore, he ain't worth shit.
Maybe they need to get a bad boy mentality and get Saruman in there.
Oh shit, you're going with the Dark Wizards, huh? Okay, all right. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so we're gonna start thinking of some wizards that the Wizards could maybe hire in this offseason, and we'll be back with more.
That's awesome. Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's move on to the Suns.
Yeah, welcome back.
One thing that I liked about doing both these teams is you have GM transitions with the Suns and the Wizards. For the Suns, you have to look back a little bit further, back to October of 2018, when Ryan McDonough steps down.
Tell us a little about Ryan McDonough.
It starts out pretty well. 2015, he drafts Devin Booker, number 13 overall.
Pretty good.
It's not bad.
Wow.
All downhill from there. 2016, nabs Dragan Bender, number 4.
Wow.
In 17-18, Dragan Bender had the 6th worst VORP in the league.
Okay, Dragan Bender is on the best team in the NBA right now, though.
The only good thing about Dragan Bender is that his name says Dragon.
Yes. Let me just confirm that he's not been waived by the Bucks, actually, when I say that he's on the best team in the NBA right now.
I think he did get waived, but...
He has been waived by the Bucks. He's no longer...
Wait, he's at Golden State now, right?
Yeah, I think so, though. Yeah. He played a few games for Golden State. All right, well, he did play for the Bucks this year.
He's one of the worst players in the league.
Yes.
That same draft, they traded the rights to Bogdan Bogdanovic, the number 13 pick, and the number 28 pick to move up to number 8 to draft Marquise Chris.
Another Golden State positive story, right? Great story this season for Marquise Chris. Did a very good job on one of the worst teams, the worst team in the league.
Yeah, he would last 2 seasons with the Suns before being traded in a salary dump.
Okay.
2017, Josh Jackson at number 4. Total bust.
Yeah.
He's off the team in about 2 years. Devon Reed at number 32. Played 21 games with them and was waived the next year.
I mean, listen. Sometimes it's about the journey, right? Not the destination.
And then Ayton at number 1 in 2018, which I think they get more crap for that now than they deserve. At the time, most mocks had him number 1, except for the Luka believers.
Yeah.
But I'd say it was a consensus that DeAndre Ayton would go number 1.
It certainly was not as bad as the Kings passing on Luka at number 2.
Yeah, for sure. So that's his draft record. Let's take a look at some trades. And February 19th of 2015, he executes the most confusing trade of all time, involving 17 players, 4 first-round draft picks, and 7 teams.
I mean, this guy's like a puppeteer.
Yeah, I'm going to try to describe this to you as concisely as possible, but if I wanted to, we could have a whole podcast about this one trade. Okay, so Phoenix trades Goran Dragic to the Heat for a 2017 first-round draft pick and a 2021 first-round draft pick. Phoenix traded a 2018 first-round draft pick to the Sixers. Sixers send Michael Carter-Williams to the Bucks, and the Bucks send Brandon Knight to the Suns. And then the Suns trade Isaiah Thomas to the Celtics for a future first-round pick from Cleveland, which ended up being the 28th pick in the draft. 2016 draft, that is. Not great return on a guy who would later get some MVP votes.
Yeah. No, I mean, he had one great season.
Now, let me hit you with a little irony here.
Yeah.
So, the Lakers pick that the Suns traded away in that trade would later become Mikal Bridges.
Okay.
Who the Suns would trade the 2 Miami picks that they got in order to get.
So it's all a wash, right? It all worked out in the end, right? Picks moved hands. I actually don't know. My brain can't comprehend whether or not they lost anything in that deal.
So at the time they had 3 good point guards, Bledsoe, Dragic, and Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
And it was just an unsustainable system.
Right.
I guess you'd say Eric Bledsoe is the best of those 3.
Probably, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. Him and Dragic are pretty. I don't know. They're good at different things, right?
Yeah, I know immediately after the trade, people were saying that they traded away the 2 best of the 3, which I think at the time was probably true. Eric Bledsoe's resurgence in Milwaukee has solidified him as the best of those 3 now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so same year, July 9th, trades Marcus Morris to the Pistons for a 2020 second-round pick after Marcus Morris and Markieff Morris had both taken pay cuts in order to stay together.
Wow. No love.
That's harsh, man.
No love. That's ridiculous. That's mean.
They have to trade Markieff less than a year later. They got pretty good return back for him. Traded him to the Wizards, hilariously enough.
There you go.
Got a 2016 first-round pick from that. February 23rd, trade PJ Tucker for 2 second-round picks. They could use Tucker right now.
Yeah, they sure could.
2017, trade Eric Bledsoe to the Bucks for a first-round pick and Greg Monroe's salary and a 2018 second-round pick.
Okay. So
how you feeling about Ryan McDonough?
I mean, it seems like he's good at throwing a lot of shit into a blender and turning the puree button on and then seeing what comes out of it. You know, I would say it could have been worse. Definitely made some weird choices. Terrible draft picks.
The draft record.
One of the worst draft records, but not one of the worst, trade records, I would say, of GMs of, recent infamy.
The trades aren't too bad.
The trades aren't too bad.
It is funny how that one went full circle, but it's the draft record that's insane.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
5 lottery picks in 3 drafts, and 3 of those lottery picks are off the team within 3 years.
And they're not even role players.
They're barely in the league at this point.
They're G League. Yeah, they're let's not even say that. They're what's worse than EuroLeague? What's the next step below EuroLeague? The Chinese League?
Australia?
Yeah, they're NBL level players. He would be good in the NBL, actually.
Nobody's quite Filipino League yet, though.
Yeah, that's true. The Filipino League's in a league of its own.
Yeah, I mean, Marquez Chris was waived by multiple teams. Bender's barely in the league. Josh Jackson's barely in the league. I'd say also he gave up on some guys too early that ended up being pretty good. Isaiah Thomas, PJ Tucker, Goran Dragic, the Morris brothers.
Yeah, for sure. The returns on those players, though, I would say it's hard to say because in retrospect, he got pretty decent return at the time for the players, right?
Yeah.
You won't say that he got swindled for any of them. I mean, getting the 28th pick because the Cavs were really good in 2016 for Isaiah Thomas is, can you pin that against him?
Yeah, and it was hard to see Isaiah Thomas becoming a potential MVP.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so Ryan McDonough fired on October 8th and replaced with James Jones.
Oh, what team hired him later?
Ryan McDonough?
Yeah.
Was he hired later?
No, I don't think so. Poor guy.
He's actually a GM in the Filipino League now.
Yeah.
So James Jones takes over as interim GM on October 8th. He's promoted to a GM on April 11th, which is about a week after Tommy Shepard is named interim GM for Washington. Funny how that works, eh? Within 3 weeks, he fires Igor Kokoshkov after one season.
Oh, just a quick interlude. McDonough currently serves as a radio host for Sirius XM NBA Radio.
Does he ever sneak over to the Howard Stern show?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I would. All the time. See what kind of pranks they're doing? Yes, not very good.
So, I think that's pretty early on firing Igor Kokoshkov. I know you're the new GM and you want to put your own dude in there, but one season?
It was a pretty bad season, man.
I mean, sure.
It was one of the worst seasons you could think of.
Yeah, just like the season before.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. He was not the common denominator.
Hires Monty Williams, who's a really respected coach. I'd say most people thought he was one of the best candidates out there.
Yeah, and I'd say that he has lived up to his expectations for sure. I think that one of the first things that people noticed about this year's Suns team is that the coaching has been much more consistent and the discipline has been much better, Okay, so let's move on. 2019 draft. He makes a lot of trades. Trades the second pick in the second round and TJ Warren, who is coming off of a great season where he scored 18 points per game on great shooting, for cash. Yeah, that was, they were smoking some PCP before that trade, guaranteed. That is ridiculous.
He's not done. Trades Jarrett Culver, who was drafted number 6, to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Cam Johnson at number 11 and Dario Saric.
Now, ironically, Cameron Johnson, I think everyone clowned on that choice when it was initially made. I mean, people were like, you drafted a golfer, not a basketball player. His claim to fame was making golf trick shot videos. But ironically, he's a better player than Jarrett Culver.
He is, I'll give him that. He's also 5 years older than Jarrett Culver.
That is true. He is literally one of the oldest players in the NBA, but... you got to give it to him. They didn't screw it up that badly.
I want to read you some draft predictions for Cam Johnson coming into the draft. NBA.net, 37th pick in the draft. The Ringer, number 33 in the draft. Kevin O'Connor, number 29 in the draft.
Kevin O'Connor had him going in the first round. He couldn't be that bad. I'll defend the Cam Johnson pick with my life. I don't give a shit. That kid has some skill.
I'm not mad about Cam Johnson. He would have been a really solid 29th pick.
Yeah, he
was picked with number 11.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah. Do they have another pick that in the first round?
So let me get to that. Trade a 2020 first-round draft pick to the Celtics for Ty Jerome at number 24 and Aaron Baines.
Hey, they got Aaron Baines out of that deal.
So after the DJ Warren trade, they're trying to cut salary in order to make a run at D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
They immediately got that salary back by taking on Baines.
Yeah, but Baines has been good. You can't say he hasn't been good. I mean, come on. It might not make sense in the moment, but
It's true, but it does not project a coherent message.
no, that's for sure.
Can I read you some headlines the
Yeah.
day after the draft?
Absolutely.
USA Today. What are the Suns trying to do? Bleacher Report. Suns moves were very confusing.
Okay.
SB Nation. What were the Suns thinking? The Ringer. Pray for Devin Booker. CBS Sports. Suns screwed the pooch again. Washington Post. Suns put in a perplexing showing.
I do like the language on that one.
Sports Illustrated. Do you know what the Suns are doing? We don't. NBC Sports. Is there any hope in Phoenix? And my favorite, Sporting News. Suns draft full of surprises.
See, I like that. That one's positive. They're not immediately writing them off.
They found the only way to talk about the Suns draft without being obviously negative.
Yeah. Full of surprises. I mean, they were just being they were making some very surprising decisions.
Yeah.
That night.
Yeah. So let's just finish out free agency. Let's see
Sure.
where this goes.
Sure.
So July 7th, trades Josh Jackson, DeAnthony Melton, a 2020 second round pick, and a 2021 second round pick to the Grizzlies for Javon Carter and Kyle Korver.
All right.
Getting a guy that you're going to waive soon,
Yeah.
and a guy that nobody's heard of for draft
Hey.
assets and a former
Hey.
lottery pick.
Did you watch that Clippers game, though, that they stole? Javon Carter was so amazing in that game. I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Javon Carter after that. Good trade.
What's funny about this is they do this trade in order to open up space to sign D'Lo,
Right.
and they wouldn't need to do this trade if they hadn't traded for Aaron
Oh
Baines.
my god. They probably realized after they took the bank, they were like, oh no, oh god, wait, what? Oh no.
You know there's like a stats guy that does
Yeah.
a bunch of numbers crunching,
Yeah.
and James Jones blamed him.
Yeah, he's like, dude, why didn't you tell me? He's like, I told you, man.
And then their other signings were actually pretty good, I thought. The Rubio 3-year, $51 million contract.
People clown on him for it, but honestly,
Rubio's good.
dude, sometimes you gotta pay someone $17 million a year to live in Phoenix. That's how much you'd have to pay me, honestly.
Apparently NBA players love Phoenix.
Really?
That's what I heard,
Damn.
yeah.
They must love the heat.
My sources tell me this.
Interesting. My sources tell me that Phoenix sucks.
It may or may not be Andrew Nicholson.
Yeah, Phoenix actually a pretty cool city.
Kelly Oubre, 2 years, $30 million, who James Jones actually traded for earlier that year, fleeced the Wizards trading Trevor Ariza for Oubre.
Oh yeah.
And then Frank Kaminsky, 2 years, $9 million, previous lottery pick from a few years back. That's not too bad.
I mean, Kaminsky, I have some things to say about Kaminsky, but you know, he's not bad. At $4.5 million a year or whatever, not bad.
So I'd say, unlike Washington, where the GM transfer appears to be for the benefit of the team, the Suns appear to be making worse decisions.
Yeah, it's true. But somehow they are playing better. They signed some pretty decent players this offseason. I will say that. You know, and that has elevated them beyond where I think most people had them.
They put more emphasis on getting veterans than they ever have.
Yeah.
And maybe that was a good call.
Yeah, because they had a lot of youth, and it wasn't working for them.
They said, listen, we're sick of drafting 19-year-old players.
That's right.
We're going to draft a 24-year-old player.
That's right. So we need some MILFs in here. Wait, what? We're tired of these teens. We need some mature players.
Oh my god. So expectations for 2019, develop young players.
Sounds good.
Strides forward under the Monty Williams hire. Perhaps get better with your fundamentals on offense and defense. And then, best case scenario, if there's major growth from Ayton and a good year from Booker, maybe compete for the 8th seed.
Yeah. I mean, people were calling it crazy, but beginning of that season sure looked like a possibility. And it is still technically possible.
As Kevin Garnett would say, anything is possible.
Anything is possible. Yeah, so should we get into the way that the season went?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think Phoenix was actually one of the best narratives of the season, team-wise. I mean, you guys, you come out of literally like a PCP binge over the offseason, making some of the most insane trades for no reason, and some weird signings, and like no one really knows what the hell is going on. All the journalists are like, these people don't know what they're doing. And then you have like their first 10 games, they look amazing for some reason. I mean, it's crazy. One of the problems, obviously, is that one of their best acquisitions in the last year, the guy that they signed, Kelly Oubre, will not be participating in the Orlando season, which is extremely unfortunate because he was one of the best reasons to watch the Suns. I mean, one of the most exciting players they had, just like, you know, his hustle stats were great. He had the clutch factor. His attitude was awesome. You could tell that the guy just put his heart out on the court every single night. He put in 35 minutes a game for them, scored 19 points, nabbed 6.5 rebounds, and got, 1.5 steals on pretty decent percentages, 45, 35%. So, what are they going to do with that wing rotation? Mikal Bridges, I guess, is the best they have. They'll have to use Dario Saric a lot more.
And he gave them that FU mentality.
Yeah.
Like, he gave you the crazy guy on the court that you need to pump up the team.
Yeah.
I think him attacking Kelly Olynyk back in the day might still be one of my favorite NBA moments.
Olynyk deserves it, like, every single time.
Kelly Olynyk does a weird over-the-back foul that doesn't look intentional, and then Kelly Oubre just gets up and tackles him.
Hey, sometimes you just need the wild card to send your team where it couldn't go before. So, but what are they going to do with those minutes in the postseason if they get there, or the rest of the regular season? They're going to have to play a lot more Mikal Bridges and a lot more Cam Johnson, I think, which isn't bad because they both obviously need more reps, and they're both decent players, despite the fact that Cam Johnson's not a Rookie of the Year candidate or anything like that, and I think Dario Saric has been pretty disappointing for them as well. One stat that they don't want you to know about, Phoenix's Pythagorean wins, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically a way of calculating wins based on taking the combined score and putting it to a certain exponent compared to the combined opponent score and taking it to a certain exponent. Their Pythagorean wins are 30-35, which actually means that they're closer to the Trailblazers of the Pelicans than they are to the Kings of the Spurs in terms of mathematical quality so far this season. Monty Williams, I think, gets some credit for, bringing about a lot of enthusiasm and giving him that really strong start to the season, but it is an issue that they haven't been able to capitalize on that in wins every single time, and that might have to do with the fact that they have, an average rotation age of less than 25 years old. They're not that experienced. It's hard to say, but it is theoretically, they are a better team than they've shown, even though, they're the 13th seed. And people do say, yeah, they shouldn't be in Orlando, and maybe they shouldn't. I think they should. I mean, what do you think?
I feel a lot better about them being in Orlando than Washington.
Yeah.
Because if you look at their season, at least there was a stretch where the Suns looked like a playoff team.
Yeah. Definitely.
Whereas with the Wizards, they're mediocre and consistently mediocre over the entire course of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And I think additionally, the Suns, there's a lot more. The season was overall, I think, a lot more interesting. You had the DeAndre Ayton suspension where, they had 25 games without one of their young stars. And then you had Aaron Baines step in as the starter for him. And there were serious questions about, when Ayton comes back, is he going to be the bench guy? Is he going to be the bench five, right? Because Baines was, shooting half of his threes. Problem is, after the first, 10 or so games, the energy kind of wore off. They suffered some pretty bad injuries, especially to Baines, who showed, part of the reason why he'll never be able to kind of exceed what he is not very robust, I guess. Gets a lot of injuries. And the games where, they had Frank Kaminsky playing the five, I mean, that is some of the scariest shit I can think of if you're trying to coordinate a defense. I mean, what the hell? So, in terms of the team's narrative over the season, I think you have to look at what was going on with their bigs. Because I think in terms of their guards, you had Ricky Rubio, who comes in and does a great job. You had Booker, who's, awesome as always. You had surprisingly good wing performances from Oubre and Mikal Bridges. So it all kind of hinges on, did Ayton and or Baines and or Kaminsky, can they do enough to basically like bring it home ever? So I actually did look at their record with Ayton and without, and it's the exact same. 40% of games win, won and lost with and without Ayton. Although Ayton did face teams that were slightly stronger on average, but eye test wise, I think he looked awesome.
Yeah.
And one other thing is that their most exciting lineup, I thought, Rubio, Booker, Mikal Bridges, Ayton, and Oubre, was also awesome. I mean, had the second most minutes, so plenty of sample size, and their net rating was plus 20.
Wow.
I mean, really, really great. So they have the basis for a really, really strong team. And honestly, I looked at another one of their lineups. Rubio, Booker, Bridges, you replace Ayton and Oubre with Sarge and Baines, the net rating's plus 17. So really, they were able to make a lot of different pieces work out in a way that I think surprised a lot of people. The problem is, it's really inconsistent. Just like the Wizards, you can't really point to a point in their season after the first few games where they had a consistent run. In fact, I was looking at their like rolling averages of net rating, and I mean, they had, you know, some really, really abysmal stretches. Games like 24 through 30, they dropped to like an average net rating of almost minus 20. So lots of ups and downs, and they have arguably much tougher competition to go up against in the West to make it into the playoffs in the East. But I do think that they're a more interesting team to look at in terms of how well do they want to do? Do they want to give Booker the green light and have him try to carry the team and potentially injure himself? But if he doesn't and the team makes the playoffs, then he comes off looking like a hero. He gains the confidence to become the superstar. You know, there's that kind of narrative as well. How hard do they try? You know, losing Oubre is probably one of the worst losses that we've had so far for a team. There's the Bogdanovic. Bertans is really bad.
I'd say Bertans is worse than Oubre.
I'd say Bogdanovic is the worst. Bertans second worst. Oubre is really bad.
I actually thought the Trevor Ariza loss which happened today, was sneaky really bad. He was awesome for the Blazers.
I don't know why he was so good for the Blazers.
Which but we should save our Trevor Ariza takes for the Blazers pod.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, the Oubre loss is significant because he was their best small ball power forward.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to what they're going to do about that issue when I get to my best of section.
Another good thing for the Suns, by the way, looking into next season, is that only one of their people on their roster is going to be an unrestricted free agent after the season, and that's Aaron Baines. So in terms of like team stability, they probably have one of the teams that's best positioned if they want to keep a similar lineup to do so. That being said, their restricted free agents are Dario Saric, Javon Carter, and Tariq Owens. So,
you got anything else on the regular season, or you want to go to best of?
You know what? I think the only other thing I would say is that if Dame didn't like pull his groin or whatever like a week before the All-Star break, the Devin Booker snub would have hurt a lot.
Yeah,
for the All-Star game. So happy that Devin Booker got his first All-Star choice. Unfortunate for Bradley Beal. It's funny that we have these two teams where potentially like these two awesome players on like these really shitty teams would get excluded just by virtue of there being so many good players. But Devin Booker, the stars aligned, you know?
They're really interesting players to analyze in depth next to each other.
Yeah.
Because they're both unbelievable offensively.
Yeah.
And they're both really bad defensively.
Yeah.
Like top 30 worst defenders in the league.
I think Booker's gotten better as of like this year, but I'm not sure. I haven't checked the numbers.
So right now he's the 26th worst in the league in defensive box plus minus.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. But the drop off from the top 10 and the top 5 to his area is pretty significant.
Right.
The top 10, hemorrhage points.
Yeah.
And then you get into normal levels of, I'm just a bad defender.
Yeah.
Let's hit some of the best ofs of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Best stretch. I'm going to read you some stats here. 7-4 to start the season. 3rd in offensive rating. 5th in net rating. third in effective field goal percentage. Devin Booker averaging 25.8 points per game on 54.5 from the field and 53.2 from 3 during that stretch. They beat the Clippers, who didn't have Paul George, and they beat the Sixers in Phoenix.
And to add to that, 2 of their losses in that first stretch were by 1 point each to the Jazz and the Nuggets. Pretty insane start. I mean, really, really unbelievable.
Yeah. And I've wondered about whether teams that started the season off well, if we can look at that as an indicator of whether they'll have a hot start in Orlando.
Right.
Because we just don't really have any other indications of how do you judge whether a team is going to be able to play well very quickly after a training camp.
Right.
Than the beginning of the season. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because I think, every year you have a team that surprises people like that. And it would be interesting to see if there is some kind of statistical secret, whether it's age or coaching, that causes certain teams to hit the ground running, so to speak. I don't think the Phoenix is going to have that advantage coming into Orlando because I think that at base it's such a bizarre situation that I don't think we can make predictions on who's going to do well and who's not going to do well. I mean, there's no home versus away. They're going to be staying at did you hear they're going to be forced to stay at the Yacht Club? The worst hotel at Walt Disney World. Can you believe that?
The Wizards don't get that one?
They do too. Yeah, all the worst teams have to stay at the Yacht Club or something, and then all the best. It's just some stupid, pretty petty stuff, but they are stuck there.
So do the Wizards, do they have to stay in the shittiest rooms at the Yacht Club?
Yeah, they stay in the basement. They stay in the rooms where it's if you couldn't pay for your meal, or it's like the live-in butler.
Oh, Bradley Beal, there's actually been a change of plans. We're putting you on the Disney Cruise Line.
They put him on the Mississippi cruise boat. Just send him off.
Best win? Pretty easily January 28th against Dallas. Beats Dallas by almost 30 points, 133-104. 2 days after Kobe dies. Luka's held to 21 points and 2 assists. Bridges and Oubre play amazing defense. 32 from Booker, 31 from Ayton.
Pretty good.
Solid win.
Yeah. Didn't Ayton have a 14-14 game? Oh, no, in that game. Okay, in that game against Dallas, Ayton went 13 of 15 from the field. Insane. Wow. Just insane efficiency.
And I watched some highlights from that game. He was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy's finesse around the rim.
Mm-hmm.
You look at him and see the muscular, enormous guy and think he's going to play sort of like Shaq.
Yeah.
It looks a lot more like Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He's very tricksy.
Yeah. Post moves, little light, finesse floaters under the rim.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure. Damn, he had a 21 rebound game against the Knicks, too.
Damn.
Crazy.
If only he could play good defense.
What is it with these young prospects and not being able to play defense?
So biggest weakness, I'm not super set on this one. I said wing efficiency from 3.
I think I noticed watching their games, when the 3 ball wasn't falling for them, they were losing. When it was falling for them, they were keeping up with some of the best teams in the league. For
me, it's just Booker, Rubio, and Bridges. They're all serviceable 3-point shooters, all shooting about 35 to 36% from 3 right now for the season. The problem with them is, are you going to get a consistent 3-point shot from those guys, especially with so much time off?
Yeah.
And with so little time to prepare.
For sure. It's a big question. I mean, there's so much randomness involved, right? In the beginning of the season, they were outperforming their expected field goal percentage by, ridiculous amounts, and they were winning these games they shouldn't have been winning. If they can replicate that, then maybe they can win a few games that they're not supposed to.
Yeah. Most interesting player, I chose Mikal Bridges. Best wing defender on the team by far.
Mm-hmm.
22nd in the league in defensive box plus minus.
Pretty good.
A rare distinction for a team that was fairly mediocre on defense.
Yeah. His arms are very long.
really long arms.
Crazy long arms.
Increased his shooting percentages drastically this year. Went from a low 30s 3-point shooter to a mid 30s 3-point shooter, 36%. Sorry, 35%.
On fewer attempts, though. That's the problem.
If he's making them, maybe he's choosing the right ones.
That's true.
What I'm interested in is, like you said, without Oubre, who's going to soak up those small ball 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Oubre played 37% of his minutes there, and Mikal Bridges has only played 8% of his minutes there.
Yeah. And the issue, I think, is that the team has so many 5s and so many 1s and so few players in between. It's really strange. Like, looking at their roster right now on Basketball Reference, it's just like, how do you have 5 point guards, 4 centers, and then, like, 2 small forwards, 2 power forwards, one of whom could be injured at any moment, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of insane that they didn't try to trade off some of the gristle, which I would say should be a mark against the management there.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. You would think that they would be able to flip one of those centers for a rotation wing.
Yeah, but one of those centers would be Frank Kaminsky or Cheick Diallo.
Cheick Diallo had some stretches where he was okay.
That's true. Aaron Baines, maybe, if they could have flipped Aaron Baines.
So, MVP of the league, or of the team, maybe of the league someday.
Hopefully. We're counting on you, buddy. We're rooting for you, old buddy, old pal.
Gotta be Devin Booker.
Yep.
Easy choice.
Yep.
I flirted with Aiden for a moment,
No.
but no.
I mean, if he hadn't gotten suspended, that's the problem. He got suspended. Even then,
Yeah.
I mean, it would not even be that close, but I think that the suspension really...
Even if you projected that production over 30 extra games,
Yeah.
I don't think it would be particularly close.
No.
He's so similar to Bradley Beal
Yeah.
in terms of offense and defense. 26th worst in the league in DPM, 26 points per game on the season, 6.5 assists, .617 true shooting. That astounded me. That's really high.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, very,
That's
very
like-
good. It means that he's getting really good free throw attempts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another difference between Devin Booker and Bradley Beal is that Devin Booker's plus-minus stats are actually good, unlike Bradley Beal's, which
Right.
are pretty mediocre, at least this year. Then again, Phoenix is a better team slightly, so, you have to make sure that you understand that all these numbers come with their context. No one's saying Devin Booker's better than Bradley Beal or vice versa, but, if I had to choose, I would choose Devin Booker because he's younger and I think he has a higher ceiling.
Yeah, I'd say so too. For me, it's mostly the defense.
Yeah, and the defense. Yeah, exactly. The defense has already improved quite a bit, so it's only going to get better from here, hopefully. Damn, he was shooting over 90% from the free throw line this year.
I know, I saw on a lot of attempts.
Yeah,
It's like 8 a game, right?
7 a game.
Yep. So, yeah, I think with both of these teams, you're looking at an idealistic outlook of maybe if they win 6 to 8 games, they have a very small chance of making it to the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
But even then, it's really small.
Very slim chance. You're talking about every other team that they're competing. Well, the Wizards are only competing against the Magic and the Nets. So the Wizards, I mean, as luck may have it, even though the Wizards are the worst team by a significant amount, they might have the easier potential path into the playoffs, just based on luck, compared to the Suns, whose chances, depend drastically on the, how many, 4 or 5 teams ahead of them, right?
4, I think.
4 teams, yeah. So they have to be 4 teams. All the Wizards have to do is, they have a lot to do. They all have a lot to do.
But we're still going to be watching them consistently during the NBA's return. So getting an idea of what their season was like, what the last few years have been like, contextualizes the team. I know for me, looking back through the stats and the history of these teams, I remembered a lot of things that I'd totally forgotten.
Yeah.
So hopefully these recaps will be useful for you guys. I know it was really useful for me. And we are new. Give us a rating and a review, and we'll
spread the word.
Please spread the word.
Yeah, spread the word about us. You know, we're trying to make it out here during this quarantine. We're going crazy. Check
us out on Outaway Team Pod.
Yeah, we'll be posting some memes of Baby Yoda soon.
Baby Yoda, and we are going to do a Twitter segment where we post the name of an obscure Wizards player that was traded every day for the next 10 years.
Perfect. I'll start working on the bot tonight. So our next episode will be involving the San Antonio Spurs and the Sacramento Kings.
Boom.
Who are the next two worst teams that are getting invited to Orlando. So that'll be exciting. A lot of interesting things going on with them. Yeah.
Sweet. And I guess see you then.
Yeah. Away team out.